Let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine you're nestled deep in the quiet, picturesque mountains of Austria. You're miles away from any major city, so you'd probably expect to see, ski lodges and hiking trails. But instead, sitting right there in the middle of nowhere is a massive, highly regulated facility. We're talking about Europe's largest legal brothel, a place known as Welcome. Today we're going to unpack the sheer mechanics and the fascinating psychology behind this sprawling, industrial-scale operation.
And the level of dedication we're dealing with here, it's honestly extreme. Get this. One client, who has actually been a regular for 17 years, bluntly admitted, "With all the money I've spent so far, I could have easily bought another apartment." That kind of statement immediately hooks you, right? It makes you wonder what on earth is driving men to invest this kind of time, and honestly, this much money, into a place like this.
Well, to understand that, we first have to wrap our heads around the physical magnitude of this ecosystem. 500. That is how many people this facility can host simultaneously at any given moment. We are talking about a 7,000 square meter compound equipped with a hotel, a buffet restaurant, and multiple saunas. It's essentially a self-sustaining little town dedicated entirely to adult entertainment.
And the demand? It is relentless. 364, this massive yet surprisingly quiet industry operates 364 days a year, literally closing its doors only on Christmas. Every single day, nearly 1,000 men pass through the facility. It is an unrelenting, multi-million-euro machine that somehow functions smoothly, completely out of plain sight. So how does an operation of this magnitude exist totally legally in the middle of Europe?
Section 1. The business of Welcome and the legal gray area it operates in.
So the whole operation relies on a very careful legal distinction. The club itself operates purely as a high-end wellness spa. They make their money solely on a €90 entry fee plus whatever food and drinks people buy. The women, meanwhile, are technically independent clients of the spa, just like the men. They negotiate their services entirely in private with the male clients, and they keep 100% of those earnings. The club takes absolutely nothing from the actual physical encounters.
Now, to maintain order with hundreds of people inside, everyone has to follow a really strict onboarding procedure. First, you pay that entry fee. Second, everyone has to change into a mandatory uniform, a white robe and slippers. Third, you mingle in a sprawling central area to kind of break the ice. And finally, if there's chemistry between two adults, they proceed to one of the 35 private rooms up on the second floor. It's a highly structured, totally predictable ecosystem.
But look, don't let the relaxed saunas and robes atmosphere fool you. You might be thinking this sounds like the Wild West. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's heavily monitored by the Austrian state. The workers are officially registered. They hold a personal booklet that requires mandatory regular checkups with dedicated Austrian doctors. They pay a daily state tax. And for security, every single one of those 35 private rooms is equipped with an SOS button, supported by a dedicated police unit ready to step in to prevent any form of coercion. But behind this heavily structured business model are the actual people doing the work.
Section 2. The women's reality, armor, and ambition.
Imagine living a complete double life. That's the reality here, as many of these women are forced to hide the truth to protect their families. Take this 19-year-old worker who admits, "I say I work in Austria, in a club, in a bar." They see it as something unacceptable. So many of these women are hiding their reality from their parents, their friends, even their partners. They are navigating an incredible social stigma every single day just to do their jobs. So, why take on that massive burden of secrecy? Well, €1,000. That is what a worker can potentially earn in a single day. Some women might see as many as 18 clients in just one shift. The financial incentive is absolutely staggering. For many of the women, who often come from Eastern Europe, this is a calculated, temporary sacrifice. They're doing this to buy a house, support their siblings through school, and ultimately gain total financial independence. But you can't just process that many people without it taking a huge toll. Seeing up to 18 clients a day requires building this impenetrable psychological armor. Workers describe the profound exhaustion of feeling used, managing negative comments from clients, and functioning almost like robots. Many actually rely on deep meditation just to cope. And some admit that the sheer volume of the work makes them completely lose the desire or even the ability to have physical intimacy in their own personal lives outside the club. Okay, let's flip it and look at the other side of this equation.
Section 3. The men in white robes and the illusion of intimacy.
Remember those mandatory white robes we mentioned earlier? They actually act as a profound social equalizer. The moment a client puts one on, their outside societal rank entirely vanishes. Doctors, lawyers, mechanics, retirees. They all look identical. It completely strips away the pretense and pressure of the outside world, leaving only men who are seeking basic human connection.
And who are these men once that armor is removed? One retired regular confessed, "I also went through a period of depression, and coming to these places really saved me." A lot of men step into this club to escape a sad, lonely daily routine. They're running from failed marriages or high-stress jobs. For them, it acts as a kind of virtual reality where they can just leave their heavy baggage at the door and finally feel seen and valued.
And here is where it subverts our standard expectations. You'd think the demand is purely physical, right? No way. A massive part of what these men are paying for is simply to be listened to. They are paying for a safe space to talk without judgment. It turns out that a huge part of the women's job is deeply mental, understanding a client's psychology, making them comfortable, and providing the emotional validation that these guys are desperately lacking out in the real world. So we've got two very different groups of people meeting in these 35 rooms.
Section 4. The illusion of happiness and a primitive need.
This whole dynamic distills down into two entirely different human needs crashing together. On one hand, you have what the women are seeking: highly practical, tangible goals, financial independence, buying a home, supporting their families. On the other hand, you have what the men are seeking: profound psychological escapism, an escape from reality, basic physical touch, and an experience with absolutely zero lasting bonds or responsibilities. It is a completely transactional intersection.
And it all leads to this really poignant realization. When we can't find it in the life we have, we look at least for a place where we can imitate it. Places like Welcome exist, and honestly, they thrive because they protect a craft as old as human desire itself. Beneath the multi-million-euro business model and the strict state regulations, something deeply primitive is happening here. It's the human need to be touched, to be listened to, and to be seen, even if it's just a temporary imitation.
So, I want to leave you with something to deeply consider about the true nature of human connection. When the real thing is just out of reach, is an imitation of happiness enough to keep going? Think about that for a second. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structure look sparks some deep curiosity for you. I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack fascinating topics, one slide at a time.